you to stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, and then Mark Fugerus will bring the invocation.
Please bow with me. Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight just thanking you for the community that we live in. And Lord, I just pray that you watch over us, guide this council, and just allow us to be good stewards for this city and all the residents. And just all the people that are right now might be having troubles in their lives or with the cold and food and everything else, Lord, I just pray that you bless them. Just give them a hedge of protection. And for all these things we pray in your name. Amen.
Thank you, Mark. All right, I would like to again welcome you to tonight's regular meeting of the Springdale City Council. This is Tuesday, January 28th, 2025. And we will start things off by our city clerk, Saber Jeffus, calling the roll.
Mayor Sprouse.
Here.
Brian Powell.
Here.
Amelia Taldo.
Here.
Jeff Watson. Mike Overton.
Here.
Mike Lawson.
Here.
Aaron Huntley.
Here.
Randall Harriman.
Here.
Mark Fugerus.
Here.
And Ernest Kate.
Here. All right, got a full house tonight. Everyone is here, so thank you for that. We're at item 4, comments from citizens. This is the agenda item that's placed on each regular city council meeting that the council sets aside a time to hear comments from our residents. If we have any residents that would like to address the council concerning an item that is not already on tonight's agenda, we would welcome those now. We just ask you to come to the podium, state your name and address, and please keep your comments brief. Is there anyone that needs to address the council concerning an item that is not on tonight's agenda? All right, thank you. Seeing none, we'll move on to item 5, approval of minutes. Council, you've had access to look those over. If there are no additions or changes, I would entertain a motion to approve them as presented. Got a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, same sign. Thank you. What's your pleasure on procedural motions?
I'll move for both A and B.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for 6A and B. And I will now call for the vote.
Carries 8-0.
All right, thank you. And item 7, Patsy could not be here tonight, so Sharon, you're going to handle that. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, City Council, Mayor. All right. Well, maybe. We might get the slide up. Oh, hold on. There we go.
There we
Turn it
go.
off and turn it back on again.
All right.
All right, the first item that we have is a request to rezone a 1-acre tract located at 5217 Whittle Road, west of North 48th Street, from A1 to SF2. Planning Commission reviewed the request and recommended for approval. The title reads, an ordinance amending ordinance number 3307, the same being the zoning ordinance of the city of Springdale, Arkansas, and the plat pertaining thereto by rezoning R2456, certain lands located at 5217 Whittle Road, from agricultural district to low-medium density single-family residential district, and declaring an emergency. And the emergency clause is for pending actions.
Move the ordinance be adopted.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Other comments or questions? I've just got one. I'm just going to ask it because I'm not sure. And Ben, I don't even know if we've got an answer to this yet. But the future trail along Spring Creek, do we have a location? Is it going to run through this parcel, or do we expect it to be on the other side of the creek, or do we even know enough to know anything yet?
We don't know. The current project ends at Whittle, and it hasn't
So we don't know enough, there's no requirements to try and talk with this property owner about anything. Okay, all right, thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, I'll call for the vote. Oh, I'm sorry, just a second. Anybody in the audience? I forgot to ask if anybody in the audience needs to speak to this. Okay, all right, call for the vote.
Carries 8-0.
Move emergency clause be adopted.
Second.
All right, and a call for the vote on the emergency clause.
Carries 8-0.
All right, thank you, Sharon.
The second item is a request to rezone a 0.61 acre tract located at 4031 Old Wire Road from SF2 to C2. Planning Commission reviewed the request and recommended for approval. The title reads, "An ordinance amending ordinance number 3307, the same being the zoning ordinance of the city of Springdale, Arkansas, and the plat pertaining thereto by rezoning R2501, certain lands located at 4031 Old Wire Road from low, medium-density, single-family residential district to general commercial district and declaring an emergency."
That passed unanimously, correct?
It did, correct.
So which portion of the property are we talking about? The entire tract or just the?
No, it's that southern portion that's kind of highlighted purple up here on the screen that says office. It's just the portion of their land that has the office on it.
Move the ordinance be adopted.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second, to approve the ordinance. Other questions or comments, concerns? Anyone in the audience? Okay, be a call for the vote.
Carries 8-0.
Emergency clause be adopted.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Call for the vote on the emergency clause.
Carries 8-0.
All right.
Thank you. The third item is a request to rezone 3.77 acres located at the northeast corner of Cary Smith and Arkansas Highway 112 from A1 to C2. Planning Commission reviewed the request and recommended for approval. The title reads, "An ordinance amending ordinance number 3307, the same being the zoning ordinance of the city of Springdale, Arkansas, and the plats pertaining thereto by rezoning R2504, certain lands located at the northeast corner of Arkansas Highway 112 and Cary Smith Road, and 8984 Cary Smith Road from agricultural district to general commercial district and declaring an emergency."
Move the ordinance pass.
Have a motion, a second, to approve the ordinance. Other comments or questions?
So, Sharon, the property across to the west is already commercial property.
Correct.
Do you know kind of what the plan is for Highway 112? Are we just the entire tract? Do we see the entire length of Highway 112 eventually being commercial, or just certain portions of it, or do we have a plan for 112?
It did. We've identified, we've recently updated the land use plan, which we plan on bringing forth to council soon. And there are certain areas of 112. This is one intersection that we've identified at the time as seeing that we would recommend being commercial. It would support commercial concentration there.
There'll be a roundabout at this one, Jeff.
Yeah.
Okay, other questions? Anyone in the audience? Yes. Yes, sir. Come right on up.
Yes, thank you for having me. My name is Rob Gary. I live in Greenbrier Estates, and I've got a statement here from our Property Owners Association and how we all feel about it. If I can read it?
Go ahead.
Okay. Based on the rezoning we feel opposed to the commercial zoning at the intersection of Cary Smith and Highway 112. Primary concern is intended use and future considerations of additional nearby properties in Ward 1. If reading correctly, C5 is institutional use, such as government buildings, nurseries, schools, universities, etc. Wording is still vague without an understanding of the intended use by the buyer or potential buyer. There are additional concerns of potential for allowed consideration of other commercial zoning applications to the property, as well as zoning progression and subsequent use that could follow to adjacent properties. As a property owner in nearby Greenbrier Estates neighborhood adjacent to the opposite corner to the property in question, I raise concerns that this could become detrimental to the residential nature of this area, including potential safety impacts, increased noise pollution, impacts to property values, and rural residential quality of life, as well as future saleability of nearby homeowners' properties. We understand the infrastructure changes to improve thoroughfares of Highway 112 and 412 bypass are well underway with the intention of providing relief to traffic congestion of the area at large. However, commercial rezoning of the agricultural areas adjacent to the residential neighborhoods are significant concern to the Springdale citizens living in the western portion of Ward 1. Building for the sake of building does not inherently mean progress, improvement, or growth.
Thank you, sir. Just for the record, I don't know if you meant to, but you stated C5.
I think it's, yeah,
They have downgraded that during the planning commission to C2.
to C2.
So C2 is the request. Now, it may not
Okay.
make any difference in the points you were trying to make, but there are differences, there are some differences between C2 and C5. I just wanted to have that, make sure we were all on the same page.
Okay, I will pass that on to our POA.
Thank you. Okay. We do have a motion and a second. Are there any other comments?
Did we hear anything from the adjacent property owner that's at SF2 right there? Were they?
Not at planning commission.
Excuse me, what was that?
At planning commission,
What about it?
if we had that letter from the neighborhood.
Yeah,
No, but if we had any other comments from the adjacent SF2, everybody knows where Greenbrier Estates is. Okay. Okay.
yeah, I was here last month for the meeting. I just didn't say anything because I didn't know I could.
You can always say something, but
I didn't know,
yeah.
I don't know how any of
That one I missed, so, this is,
You might have already said it. What was the planning commission vote?
8-0.
okay, any other comments? Okay, we'll call for the vote.
Thank you.
Carries 8-0.
Move merge clause be adopted.
Second.
Okay, call for the vote on the emergency clause.
Carries 8-0. Yeah, and it's C2, not C5.
Correct.
Thank you.
The next item is a request to rezone a 0.22 acre tract located at 1094 Nichols Road on the south side of Lake Elmdale from A1 to SF2. Planning Commission reviewed the request and recommended for approval. The title reads an ordinance amending ordinance number 3307, the same being the zoning ordinance of the city of Springdale, Arkansas, and the plat pertaining thereto by rezoning R2507, certain lands located at 1094 Nichols Road from agricultural district to low-medium density single-family residential district, and declaring an emergency. And the emergency clause is for pending actions.
Move ordinance pass.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the ordinance. Any other questions or comments? Anyone in the audience need to speak to this request? Are we good? Okay. All right, call for the vote.
Carries 8-0.
Move merge clause be adopted.
Second.
Okay, we'll call for the vote on the emergency clause.
Carries 8-0.
The next item is a request to revise the regulatory plan of the downtown form-based code for a 0.4 acre tract located at 700 and 724 East Johnson Avenue from Neighborhood Center Type 1 to Neighborhood Center Type 2. Planning Commission reviewed the request and recommended for approval. The title reads, "An ordinance amending Chapter 32 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Springdale, Arkansas, and Downtown District Form-Based Code, FB 2502, revising Section 2.0, the regulating plan, declaring an emergency, and for other purposes."
I make a motion the ordinance pass.
Second.
Sharon, what is the difference between those two?
The NC1 is, it's our primary retail district, so that's a zoning, the dark red zoning that you see along Emma Avenue. And it is around Johnson Avenue, and Laura Street as well. And the NC2 allows for more mixed use, so there's a little bit more flexibility in the building envelope standards. It allows for a little more residential use on not just the second floor, but on the bottom floor too.
And we did have a motion and a second. Other questions or comments? Anyone in the audience? Okay, call for the vote.
Carries 8-0. Does have emergency clause.
Move the emergency clause be adopted.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for the emergency clause and a call for the vote on that.
Carries 8-0.
The next item is a request for a conditional use for a food truck court in a C5 zone located at the southeast corner of South Old Missouri Road and East Huntsville Avenue. Planning Commission reviewed the request and recommended for approval with the following conditions. May not operate between the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. No obstruction of parking spaces required for the operation or any other use on site. Maintain on the site a minimum of 3 parking spaces designated for their use. If a health certificate is required, display the health certificate in a manner visible to customers. No obstruction of pedestrian or motor vehicle flow. No obstruction of traffic signals or regulatory signs. No vending upon a public way. No sound or device that produces a loud or raucous noise in violation of city ordinance or violate any other city ordinances in connection with the vending operation. And keep vending sites clean and free of paper or refuse of any kind generated from the operation of their businesses. All trash and debris accumulating within 20 feet of any vending stand should be collected and deposited into a trash container. And the title reads, "A resolution approving a conditional use, C-2503, for a use unit 52, True Food Truck Court, in a thoroughfare commercial district, C5, as set forth in ordinance 4030.
What are the provisions for water and sewer?
So each station is going to be hooked up to water, so they don't have to have a third-party disposal method. They have a corresponding large-scale development that is more permanent.
So they don't have to have restroom facilities in a common area for these?
They do. And they've provided an office, restrooms, some storage space for the food trucks.
Well, I don't want to get in the weeds too much, since this is a rezoning.
Well, this one's the
It's a
conditional use, so feel
oh,
free
okay,
to
there we go, there
get
we
into the
go.
weeds.
Required to have an on-site manager.
Correct. They're going to have an on-site manager, a trash maintenance plan. They've met all of the requirements. They were granted a variance for 11 mobile vending units rather than 10, and the additional one is for that ice machine that's out there on the west side of the property by Old Missouri.
So the on-site manager, they'll be there during all hours of operation?
That's what we expect.
Okay, so shut down at 10 PM, how's that going to be managed besides that manager that's supposed to be on site?
How are they going to manage the actual shutdown of it? I'm not sure. I'm happy to look into that. Hopefully, they would have a plan.
I guess
a
we just have to
closing
address
time
it, Mark,
and-
if it's brought to our attention that they're open after 10. The same way we'd have to do anybody else, yeah.
So all these other provisions and conditions, will that be on the owner of the property or each of the individual food truck owners?
The owner and the property. This conditional use we're asking for it to be granted to them.
You remember, we put some pretty specific regulations on food truck courts as opposed to just a food truck, which addresses way more, like the one on 265 South.
Yeah, that's a good example of one that,
So I'm a little confused about who the applicant is and who's being granted the conditional use. On these food truck applications, and this is a larger one than we usually see, a lot of times it's just one trailer or truck.
correct.
On these applications, is it the trailer owner, the truck owner, I mean, or whatever it is? Or is it the property owner that's the applicant that gets the conditional use?
So it's the property owner who is seeking the conditional use, and he has agreed and through his development plan to meet all of those requirements. And so then each individual food truck that wants to come in and operate their business there, they can. They just apply for a business
So
license.
the actual conditional use is granted, from what you just said, to the property owner?
Correct.
Okay, so then I look at the resolution that we have in front of us, and it says Lewis and Michael Villegas, 265 Food Court, which doesn't make any sense at all to me. What does that mean?
The name, 265 Food Court?
Well, it says Lewis and Michael Villegas, comma, 265 Food Court.
So those are the two gentlemen who are the property owners, and that is the name that they have given to this development. That's what they're calling
Is
it.
it an LLC or something, or why would you even include that? If we're granting the application to the property owners, I'm not even sure why that 265 Food Court's in there. So,
We were
what's-
hoping it would just be more site-specific.
okay, but we're granting it to those two gentlemen, Lewis and Michael, correct?
Correct.
All right, so what's this that we're looking at now?
This is a site plan that they submitted corresponding to the conditional use. They had a large-scale development that was also heard at Planning Commission and approved.
Hey,
So this is the overall site
If
plan.
you can see, I don't know if you can see it, we can barely see it, up above what appears to be an existing building, right?
Correct.
It says track one. Is this area that we're granting conditional use on track one?
No, I think that site plan might just, the basis might be a previous surveyor that the engineers used.
Well, I don't know, it's in front of us, so I have to ask the question, because it sure doesn't look like, I don't see Michael and Louis Villegas' name on there anywhere.
Yeah, it's on there. If you'll look above the Springdale logo, the first thing you'll hit on your left, under track two.
Which is part of this, that this development is included in that track too. It does, and that's an error on plannings. It should have had that existing structure taken out of it. There are two tracks. We expect an informal plat to come through to slightly adjust that property line, but both are owned by the same owners. But yes, the purple or the pink hatch that we identified is not correct. It does go up to Huntsville, on the east side of the structure, but the development with the entrance on Old Missouri starts south of that structure. And the only reason that they are extending the drive and parking up to Huntsville was to meet city code of having access on 2 right-of-ways.
So is it the purple area that entire thing is going to be granted conditional use?
You can see do we see the parcel line, the dividing between track 1 and track 2 on this drawing?
I think it is the dotted line that you're
Dotted
seeing.
line?
Yes, so it's below.
And the parking north of that is just
Some is. The more gray one that is on the eastern, the more gray parking in the drive that goes to Huntsville, that is all new and proposed. Correct, that's all existing. Yes, 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 and it serves that establishment.
so that picture that you showed, is that that should be an L
Yes, correct.
with the building out
Yes,
down to the lot line and then up on the east
yes,
side.
sir.
So it's not the purple line?
No, it doesn't go into the purple part.
And we think that lower part is owned by these two gentlemen, Lewis and Michael.
Yes,
You actually said both tracks are owned by them.
yes, sir.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Any other questions? Did we get we got a motion and a second, didn't we? Okay. Is there any other questions, council, or anyone in the room? Okay. And I'll call for the vote on this resolution.
Carries 8-0.
All right, I think we're on G. Sharon, if I'm following along correctly.
All right. And it should be a request for the same development. Yep, so the next one, it is a request for a waiver of sidewalk improvements for Old Missouri Road and Huntsville Avenue in conjunction with the large-scale development that we just discussed at the southeast corner of Old Missouri Road in Huntsville. Planning Commission reviewed the request and recommended for denial with a vote of 7-1. And the title of this resolution reads, "A resolution approving a waiver, W-2504, of street improvements, drainage, curb, gutters, sidewalk, and streetlights as set forth in ordinance number 3725 to 265 food court in connection with L-2504."
Oh, we skipped one, Mike. She's on H. We were still looking at G, and that's the storage.
Oh, I apologize,
We can, it doesn't matter, but
No, that's your choice.
Yeah, I got total.
Would you like to go to the storage unit or continue with this?
let's go back to the storage. No, you want to do the storage? Okay, the one you just described, yeah. And then we'll go back to the food court
Okay.
for the waivers request. We're gonna do it, but she's already been showing us H, so we're just gonna go ahead and do H, and then we'll go back to G, if that's all right.
Well, I was actually reading the food court, the food truck court one.
So she said should be on this one.
We should be on the storage, correct, and G, yes. And then we'll come back to H, which is the food court.
Okay.
We got it.
Okay. So this is a request for a waiver of street improvements for Dixon Street in conjunction with a large-scale development for the southeast corner of 71B and Black Oak Avenue. The Planning Commission reviewed the request and recommended for denial. The title reads, "A resolution approving a waiver, W-2428, of street improvements, drainage, curbs, gutters, sidewalks, and streetlights as set forth in ordinance number 3725 to Legacy Ventures Storage in connection with L2447, a large-scale development.
So they're wanting a waiver, and the planning commission wants a denial of that waiver. Was there any talk of payment in lieu?
Not at the time. They wanted to bring it to council, but I believe the owner and developer is here if they wanted to say anything. All
What is it
street,
they're wanting to waive?
all street improvements for Dixon Street. So they actually have 3 fronts,
Oh, the back, on the
71 Black Oak and
east side.
Dixon. So it's actually that one on the east side. Correct. They've agreed for improvements for the others.
So, hi, good evening, I'm sorry, am I okay? Good evening, my name's Tim Bryzell, I'm the owner and developer of this particular piece of property. So, just want to speak on it, it's a unique piece of property for a number of different reasons. I seem to be attracted to those type of properties, but that's a whole different topic. But we had to clear up some confusion. There was a letter that went through to Planning Commission that was outdated, and it requested a waiver for all 3 street improvements. Where it's a unique piece of property, we've got 3 streets that we have frontage on, okay? Black Oak, 71 Business, and Dixon Street. We had a letter requesting a waiver of all 3 that was outdated and still found its way through to Planning Commission. That's resulted in the denial, and I think the outcome would have been slightly different had they had an updated letter. In reality, we are just requesting a waiver on Dixon Street, okay? We've got, a letter from RDOT stating, do not touch 71 Business. We do not want any street improvements on 71 Business. We do have improvements scheduled and proposed for our frontage along Black Oak Road, and so we are doing that. We are simply requesting a waiver for Dixon Street. And our justification for that waiver is basically, we have one entrance on our proposed development that is going to an entrance onto Black Oak Road. We are not in any way, shape, or form using Dixon Street. As a matter of fact, the topography, I mean, you guys probably know this piece of property. It's a unique, difficult piece to develop. There's a lot of cut and fill. There's a lot of earth-moving operations that are going to go on. It's going to result in a 6 or 7 foot cut along Dixon Street. Okay, so we're going to have a cut. We're going to have our building sitting lower, well below Dixon Street. We're going to have a retaining wall. And then once that levels up and meets natural grade to Dixon Street there, we'll have a 6-foot privacy fence, screening, lots of trees, landscape buffer, so on and so forth. You'll never be able to see it in 3 to 5 years from Dixon Street. Okay, so that's our main justification for it. Other factors to consider, if you stand on Dixon Street and look south, I mean, it's nothing more than a trail, really. There's a little bit of a cul-de-sac there. If you look south, it's blocked by townhomes or condos as you approach the golf course there. I don't think it will ever be or could be. It's cost prohibitive to make it a through street. Additionally, it's basically all developed out. There's not any, I don't see any sort of new developments that are going to give right-of-way or additional funding for any future expansion of this street. So it's for those reasons that we respectfully request a waiver only for Dixon Street, not for anything else. So I think the outcome would have been different if we made that a little more clear with Planning Commission. So
That's really more of a path. That was, Virgil Dixon put that in years ago, so it's really, never has been a real street.
yes, sir.
James, didn't we have a question at one point whether that was even a city street or not? If I remember that correctly?
Oddly enough, we've been in touch with Springdale Water Authority. We're, of course, concurrently working through with them, and we've got a couple different things, and they brought up the same thing. They said, is it even really, is that a street? And
If I can chime in, we did have that conversation when this was first submitted. I actually think it was you, Mr. Kate, and GIS, where we were all in a room together and determined that prescriptive right-of-way, that it was a city street.
Kinda.
I knew we talked about it, but I couldn't remember what the specific conversation was.
James, do we do any maintenance on that street?
I move for option 1.
We do.
Waiver?
Grants a waiver.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion, a second. James, you got an answer to my question?
Yes, we do maintenance.
Okay. Okay. Didn't mean to set you up for an insult there.
What's on the east side of the street?
On the east side of Dixon Street?
I-
Residences.
Okay, any other questions? We do have a motion and a second to approve the full waiver, correct? On
So
Dixon.
Mayor, I have a question.
Okay.
He stated that the RDOT said don't touch that road. or Highway 71. Is that normal, or does most
Yeah, a lot of-
businesses
we
never
wouldn't.
do any improvements on 71 business?
Right. No, they couldn't do street improvements. In RDOT right away. Am I right with that, Ben? Or, I mean, without their agreement?
They'd have to get a permit to do
Typically,
kind of
they don't
improvement.
do any road improvements, but they do sidewalk or trail improvements depending on the situation.
True. Okay.
Well, I guess I'm just wondering about, there's apparently at least 5 lots on the east side of Dixon Street that, and from the picture, it looks like there's some residences on those lots. So they must be like residential or agricultural or something. They're not commercial, I don't think. And at some point in time, you know, in that area, they may be improved to, there may be some additional improvement on, at least on that east side. That puts the entire burden on somebody else if we have to improve that street, right?
But there's nothing to develop once they put this in, there's nothing to develop on the west side. Because like he said, he's gonna have a big cut there and have to put a retaining wall up to hold that earth in, then put a privacy fence on top, so it's nothing to develop on the west side.
Well, I'm not sure what that means, nothing to develop. They're developing it
Well,
by
no
doing
land
all
on
that.
the, there's nothing to build on it after they put this project in.
What about the property to the south of there? Or
All right. Well, we've got a motion and a second on the table. Are there other questions? Anybody in the audience? All right, then I'll call for the vote.
Carries 6-2, option 1.
All right. Now we can go back to food court, Sharon. You had.
Okay, so the last item is this waiver request for the food truck court. And it is, they're requesting a waiver for sidewalk improvements for both Old Missouri Road and Huntsville Avenue in conjunction with that large scale. The title reads a resolution approving a waiver, W-2504, of street improvements, drainage, curb, gutters, sidewalks, and street light as set forth in ordinance number 3725 to 265 food court in connection with L-2504, a large-scale development. And
move
this
for
is
option
where,
2. Move for option 2.
I'll second that.
Well, we've got the situation where we've got improved streets on both of these streets too. So my question is, what would the waiver entail?
it is just a sidewalk waiver. Right now, there are 5-foot sidewalks on both of those streets. And with the master street plan, it requires a 10-foot sidewalk, at least on Old Missouri, and an 8-foot on Huntsville. That's a collector, and they're requesting to keep the existing 5-foot in place.
All right, it doesn't affect lighting or anything like that?
No,
So this is just the width of the sidewalk?
correct.
Okay. Okay, so the motion is to deny the waiver, and so, and that's, and we got a motion and a second. Are there any other comments or questions?
What was that vote at planning?
7-1, recommended for denial.
So I'm gonna make sure I understand where we're at on this one. You're asking, your motion is to deny their request to waive that demand by us to widen the sidewalk. And just across the street on the other side of Old Missouri, we just did that.
That was an 8-foot sidewalk that we, after investigation, we found out it was.
Yeah, I remember we built the 8 because that's part of that trail to Thunder Chicken, or not Thunder Chicken, to,
And Jeff, just to answer or to add more, during planning, they were talking about with the food court and everything, everybody walking around there and riding in there, they wanted the wider one.
I almost kind of wish this applicant had asked two separate waivers. It almost looks to me like we should treat Old Missouri a little bit different than Huntsville, but
all right. Is there more contemplating, or before I call for a vote? All right, if not, then I'll call for the vote.
Carry 7-1, option 2, which is a denial of the waiver request.
All right, is that it, Sharon? Thank you. And we'll move to item 8, Ordinance Committee, and Chairman Mike Lawson. Mike?
Thank you, Mayor. We had one item before us last week. It was recommended for approval. If I remember correctly, it was just kind of some purchasing practices in general. I'll let Ernest speak to it in more detail. I'll go ahead and read it first. An ordinance amending Chapter 2, Article 5, Division 2 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Springdale, Arkansas, and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Lawson. That's correct. This amends the ordinance to be consistent with the state statute, which changed on January 1st, which raised the monetary threshold at which competitive bidding is required from $35,000 to $42,921. And instead of putting that in there, I just made reference to whatever the statute says. That way we won't have to come back and change it every time the statute changes.
Move the ordinance be adopted.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the ordinance. Other questions or comments? Anyone? Anyone in the audience? Okay, call for the vote.
Carries 8-0. Does have an emergency clause.
Emergency clause be adopted. Second.
Motion and a second for the emergency clause. Call for the vote.
Carries 8-0.
All right, thank you. Item 9, Finance Committee and Chairman Jeff Watson. Jeff?
all right, the Finance Committee has only one resolution that was forwarded to the council. This resolution is forwarded with recommendation for approval. I'll ask Ben to address it, but I'll go ahead and read the title. The title to that resolution is a resolution authorizing the city of Springdale, Arkansas to accept and enter into a subaward grant agreement with the Arkansas Tri-Region Energy and Environment Innovation Coalition to utilize subawarded funds for EPA Climate Pollution Reduction Grant, parentheses CPRG, parentheses project implementation, and for other purposes.
So the state of Arkansas received almost $99 million through this program to do these kinds of improvements. Springdale was selected as a subaward recipient for about $3.9 million of that $99 million. So this is 100% federally funded. This is to do stream bank restoration and wetland protections to help with flood control and with stream bank erosion from our development that we've had over the years.
We gonna kill any more grass?
Don't plan to kill grass, but invasive species we do.
So this will be helping with detention areas, and you'd even mentioned, you know, we've got some property coming to us at some point, I'm fairly confident,
Yes,
around Bluff, across from Bluff Cemetery. And this money could also be used to help,
Could be used to help clean that up
Clean that up.
and stabilize those stream banks that are eroding at the corner there.
whereas what we did before, we had to, it was on Public Works, so,
Yep.
yeah. 4 million's a pretty good chunk with no match.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Move the resolution be adopted.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the resolution. Other questions or concerns or comments? Anyone in the room or the council? Okay, call for the vote.
Carries 8-0.
All right, and we're at item 10, Police and Fire Committee and Chairman Brian Powell.
Thank you, Mayor. We had one item come up before us in committee, and it is upgrading alert system that we have. And I'll read the title of this resolution. The chief's here if anybody has any questions. Resolution authorizing the purchase of a new location fire station alerting system for the Springdale Fire Department and to waive competitive bidding. And Chief, if I'm correct, that this was already budgeted.
Yes, yep, that's correct.
Explain just a little bit, Chief, what this
Sure.
does.
Yeah, this will be upgrading our location fire station alerting, so the component from the dispatch center to each individual fire station to let them know that they have an emergency. Upgrading to what's called location console data integration, so LCDI. What we have currently is a push-to-talk, which is a legacy system that's dependent on the radio system at the dispatch center and a radio receiver at the fire station. This moves, automates some of that control from a dedicated location dispatch console outside of one of the dispatch, the console stations that they use, and addresses times specifically of network interruption and/or high demand dispatch time when all the consoles are busy.
Thanks,
Move
Chief.
resolution pass.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the resolution. Other comments or questions? Audience? Okay. Call for the vote.
Carries 8-0.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chief. Item 11, I'll turn over to Saber Jeffus, our city clerk.
The city clerk's office is seeking approval to destroy documents. It complies with our maintenance and destruction guidelines, and there should be a list in your packet.
Move the resolution be adopted.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the resolution. Other questions or comments? All right. Call for the vote.
Carries 8-0.
All right, thank you. And item 12, I'm going to turn over to our city attorney, Ernest Cate.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an ordinance authorizing the city clerk to file a cleanup lien for the removal of overgrown brush and debris on property located within the city of Springdale, Arkansas, and declaring an emergency. This is on property located at 1503 West Emma Avenue.
Move ordinance pass.
Got a motion and a second to approve the ordinance. Other comments or questions? Is there any, do we have anyone in the room that needs to speak concerning this property? Okay, seeing none, we'll call for the vote.
Carries 8-0.
Move emergency clause be adopted.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second for the emergency clause, and we'll call for the vote on that.
Carries 8-0.
All right, thank you, Ernest. Item 13, any comments from council members? How about?
I did have one,
Oh, Go ahead, Randall.
The Northwest Arkansas Community College Foundation asked me to express their appreciation for us granting them some ARPA funds. So they wanted me to let everybody know that.
Great. Thanks, Randall. City Attorney?
No, sir.
Nothing from me. Do we have a motion to adjourn? There it is. We stand adjourned. Thank you all very